All right, so today we're going to dive deep into something pretty fascinating. It's all about those essential virtues, those qualities that help us build a strong character and become, well, the best versions of ourselves. And we're basing this exploration on Dr. Tom Lickona's work, specifically his book, Character Matters.
Sounds intriguing.
Right. But now you might be thinking, virtues. Isn't that a bit, old school?
Yeah, I can see how some people might think that.
But trust me, these ideas, they're surprisingly relevant, even in today's world. And that's what we're going to unpack. Like, what actually makes a virtue essential? And how can these qualities truly make a difference in a world that often, let's face it, feels kind of chaotic?
You've hit the nail on the head with those questions. It is interesting how these virtues, so many identified centuries ago, still resonate so strongly today.
Yeah, exactly.
Lickona actually starts with what he calls the Greek quartet: wisdom, justice, fortitude, and self-control. The cornerstones of character, according to those ancient Greeks.
The Greek quartet. Okay, I'm already hooked. What was so special about these four virtues for them?
Well, they saw these virtues as intertwined, each one kind of supporting the others. And wisdom for them wasn't just about, like, book smarts.
Right, more than just knowledge.
It was about having good judgment, understanding what truly matters, and then using that understanding to make good decisions. Think of it as, the ability to navigate all the complexities of life, but with clarity and purpose.
Makes sense. So wisdom's like our compass, guiding us in the right direction. Gotcha. What about justice, though? That seems, I don't know, pretty straightforward. Fairness, right?
Yes, fairness is a big part of it. But for the Greeks, justice went deeper than that. It was about respecting the inherent dignity of every single individual.
Okay.
It's a concept that's beautifully echoed in the Golden Rule, something you find in various cultures throughout history.
Right. Treat others as you want to be treated.
Exactly. Justice is about recognizing that everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves fair treatment and equal opportunities, no matter their background, no matter their circumstances.
Powerful stuff. And that leads us to fortitude, yeah. Lickona quotes this motto, do the hard right instead of the easy wrong.
Yeah.
And man, that feels so relevant today in a world where, let's be honest, it's easy to take shortcuts or compromise our values just because it's convenient.
It is. And fortitude, it's not just about, physical strength or toughness. It's about moral courage, facing challenges head on, having that resilience to overcome hardship, and sticking to your principles even when it's tough, really tough.
No, totally. It makes you think about, like, the rising teen suicide rate. Some experts are linking that tragedy, at least in part, to a lack of this very virtue, an inability to cope with the setbacks that are just a part of life,
It's a stark reminder of how crucial fortitude is.
It really is. And then, of course, there's self-control.
Right.
That classic saying, either we rule our desires or desires rule us, feels especially potent today, I mean, I think about all the temptations, distractions we're bombarded with constantly.
Oh, absolutely. And self-control, it's that ability to master those impulses, to delay gratification because we know something greater is waiting for us. It's about making conscious choices, aligning our actions with our long-term goals and those values we hold dear, rather than just giving in to, whatever we're feeling in the moment.
It's kind of unsettling, though, right? How many of our struggles today, addiction, impulsive spending online, all that, stem from a lack of this very thing?
That's a good point. A lot of our challenges do seem to tie back to these core virtues, don't they?
It's true. But Lickona, he doesn't stop with the Greeks. He goes on to add 6 more virtues to his list: love, positive attitude, hard work, integrity, gratitude, and humility.
He's basically building on that ancient foundation, adding layers of complexity to this whole idea of what it truly means to live a virtuous life.
I like that. And Lickona uses these real-life examples, these stories, to illustrate these virtues, which really makes them come alive.
Yeah.
Like, he quotes F. Washington Jarvis, who said, love, selfless love that expects nothing back, is the most powerful force in the universe.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. It really highlights how love in its purest form, it goes beyond just fairness or obligation. It's about genuinely caring for the well-being of others and being willing to make sacrifices for their happiness, even when it's hard.
It makes you think, how often do we confuse love with, like, fleeting feelings or those kind of romantic notions we see in movies? It sounds like Lickona's talking about something way deeper, more enduring.
Exactly. It's about acting from a place of genuine compassion, showing concern for the well-being of others, even when, we don't necessarily feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Right, right. That's a really important distinction. So how does a positive attitude fit into all of this?
Well, Lickona emphasizes the importance of, choosing our perspective. He contrasts Abraham Lincoln, who famously said, "Most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be," with Martha Washington's belief that the greater part of our happiness or misery depends upon our dispositions and not upon our circumstances.
Okay, that's interesting.
They both acknowledge this power of mindset, right? But they come at it from slightly different angles.
Yeah, it's like they're both saying we have a choice in how we view our experiences, even if our natural tendencies might lean one way or the other.
You got it. A positive attitude, it's not about denying the challenges or pretending everything's perfect. It's about approaching those challenges with a sense of hope, seeing the possibility in every situation.
It's about focusing on what we can control, like our reactions, our interpretations, our effort, rather than getting bogged down by things that are, well, out of our hands.
That's the key takeaway, absolutely.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then there's good old-fashioned hard work. John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach, famously said, "I challenge you to show me one single solitary individual who achieved his or her own personal greatness without lots of hard work." I love that quote. So straightforward. It cuts through all the noise about talent and luck and all that.
It does, doesn't it? And hard work, in this context, it's not just about, mindless toiling away. It's about initiative, being diligent, setting goals, and finding creative solutions to challenges as they pop up.
Right, you have to be resourceful.
Exactly. And hard work is a virtue that's both internally rewarding and it has an impact on the world around us. Think about it. What are some of your most satisfying achievements? The things you're most proud of?
Good question.
I bet they involved a good deal of effort, some perseverance along the way.
It's true. The things we truly value, they usually involve some level of struggle, right? That sense of accomplishment is so much sweeter when you know you've really earned it.
Exactly. And it's not just about external achievements either. Hard work, it builds character, it teaches us discipline, resilience, and that whole idea of delayed gratification.
This is making me think of that quote from Theodore Roosevelt. "Nothing in the world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty." He really understood that transformative power of hard work, didn't he?
He did. And you know what? It ties back to those other virtues we talked about. Wisdom helps us figure out what's actually worth working for. Fortitude gives us the strength to push through those challenges. And self-control, well, it keeps us focused on the goal, even when things get tough.
I'm starting to see how all of this connects. It's like a puzzle where all the pieces are starting to fit together. So what about integrity? I'm curious to hear Lickona's take on that one.
So Lickona, he makes this interesting distinction between honesty and integrity.
Oh, okay. How's that?
He says honesty is about telling the truth to other people, while integrity, it's about being true to yourself.
So it's about aligning our actions with our values, even when nobody's watching.
You got it. It's about that inner compass, the one that guides us toward making choices that reflect who we truly are deep down.
Right. I mean, think about it. Imagine you have a chance to cheat on a test or take credit for someone else's work. No one would ever know, and you could benefit big time. But, deep down inside, it would violate your sense of self. That's where integrity kicks in. It's about making the choice that aligns with your core values, even when it's tough, even when there might be a cost.
It's a powerful thing. And it takes courage, especially in a world that often seems to reward those shortcuts and compromises, right?
Big time. And sometimes it's not even easy to know what the right thing to do, I guess.
You're right. It's not always black and white. And that's where wisdom comes into play.
There's that compass again.
Exactly. Wisdom helps us figure out the best course of action, considering our values and the specific situation. Because integrity without wisdom, that can lead to blindly following rules without thinking about the nuances of a situation.
I see.
But on the flip side, wisdom without integrity, well, that can lead to clever justifications for doing what's convenient rather than what's truly right.
So they work together, each one strengthening the other.
Exactly. They're intertwined, just like those Greek virtues we talked about earlier.
This is making me think about all those ethical dilemmas we face in our lives, both personally and professionally. It's not always clear-cut. Sometimes the right path, it requires us to really think things through and be willing to face the consequences.
That's the thing about integrity, isn't it? It's about living in alignment with our deepest values, even when it's hard. It's about being the kind of person we can look at in the mirror and be proud of, regardless of what's happening around us, regardless of the outcome.
This has been such a rich conversation, really nuanced. It's amazing how these seemingly simple virtues can spark so much reflection, lead to such great insights. What's next on Lickona's list?
Well, next up is gratitude. A virtue that, surprisingly, can be quite challenging in our fast-paced, achievement-oriented culture.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into that. But before we move on, can we just pause for a second? I mean, it's amazing how interconnected these virtues are, right? It's not just a random list of good qualities. It's more like a tapestry
Right.
where each thread is strengthening and supporting the others.
I agree. And as we delve into these remaining virtues, I think you'll see even more clearly how they all work together to create this strong, resilient character.
Okay, so gratitude. I gotta admit, this is one I wrestle with sometimes.
Hmm.
It's just so easy to get caught up in the hustle of it all.
Mm.
Always focusing on what's missing, what's next, what I still need to achieve. Where does gratitude even fit in when you're in that mindset?
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah?
It's a common thing, especially in today's world. Like the writer Anne Husted Burley, she reminds us gratitude, kind of like love, it's not just a feeling, it's an act of the will.
Mm.
We choose to be thankful, just like we choose to love. It's a conscious shift in perspective.
So it's not about denying the challenges or pretending like everything is perfect,
Yeah.
right? More like actively choosing to appreciate the good, even when things are tough.
Exactly. Remember that war hero, Eddie Rickenbacker?
Oh yeah, vaguely.
After being adrift at sea for 21 days, he said the biggest lesson he learned was that if you have all the fresh water you want to drink and all the food you want to eat, you ought never to complain about anything. Talk about perspective.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Makes our everyday complaints seem kind of, I don't know, small.
Right, it's like a reality check. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to that sense of entitlement, that negativity that can creep in.
So it helps us appreciate those simple things, those everyday blessings we often take for granted.
Yes, exactly. And it can have a huge impact on our overall well-being, too.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. If we're constantly dwelling on what's wrong, what we don't have, well, those feelings just get bigger. But if we make an effort to focus on what we're grateful for,
It can create this ripple effect of positivity in our lives.
exactly. So how do we actually cultivate a more grateful heart, especially when life throws those curveballs? Is it as simple as just making a list of things we're thankful for every day?
Well, while that can be a good starting point, true gratitude, it goes deeper than that. It's about understanding that interconnectedness of life, realizing we don't achieve anything in isolation.
Hmm, that's interesting.
It's about appreciating the contributions of others, acknowledging the support we've received along the way, and even recognizing all those unseen forces that make our lives possible.
It's a beautiful way to look at it. Seeing beyond ourselves, recognizing that whole web of relationships and circumstances that have shaped our lives.
That's it. And it's about actually expressing our gratitude to those people who have touched our lives in meaningful ways. It doesn't have to be anything grand. A simple thank you, a handwritten note, a small act of kindness, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, those little things can mean so much, like we're weaving those threads of connection even tighter through the act of gratitude. Okay, so what about humility? We're talking about it being the foundation of all the other virtues, but how does that actually work in practice?
Right. Well, Lickona, he describes humility as the bedrock of character, the thing that allows all those other virtues to really flourish.
Okay.
It's about recognizing our imperfections, knowing that we're not perfect, we all need to grow, and realizing how connected we are to others. It's admitting we don't have all the answers, that there's always something new to learn.
So it's the opposite of arrogance or having a big ego
Right.
that need to always be right to have the last word.
Exactly. Humility allows us to approach life with this sense of curiosity, with openness, a willingness to learn from others, and it frees us from that burden of ego, lets us connect with people on a much deeper, more authentic level.
I like that. It's like humility creates space for all those other virtues to take root and grow,
Mm.
like the fertile soil where wisdom, justice, fortitude, all the rest can flourish.
I love that analogy. And actually, Lickona quotes the psychiatrist, Lou Tartaglia, who calls that whole addiction to being right the most common character flaw he sees in his practice.
Really, the addiction to being right.
Yeah, he says it's super common.
I can see how clinging to that need to be right would just, I don't know, block our growth,
Yeah.
prevent us from really connecting with others.
It's a wall, isn't it, between us and the world. It prevents us from experiencing the joy of learning, the beauty of collaboration, and, well, the richness of all those different perspectives out there.
So how do we cultivate more humility, especially in a world that often seems to reward ego and self-promotion?
Yeah.
It feels almost like a countercultural virtue.
You're not wrong. It does go against the grain in a lot of ways. But it's not about putting ourselves down or denying our accomplishments.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, that our achievements often come from contributions from so many people, and that we're all works in progress, constantly evolving and learning.
So it's about letting go of that need to be perfect or have all the answers.
Exactly. Humility allows us to approach life with that beginner's mind, eager to learn from every experience, every interaction. It makes us open to feedback, to different viewpoints, to the possibility that we might be wrong sometimes.
It sounds like a powerful antidote to all the polarization and division we see in the world today. If we could all cultivate a little more humility, imagine how much more productive our conversations would be, how we could build those bridges, find that common ground, even when we disagree.
Couldn't agree more. Humility is key for fostering empathy, compassion, and understanding. It lets us see the humanity in everyone, even those we might disagree with.
This has been such a deep exploration, so many layers to these virtues. I'm starting to see them not just as these lofty ideals, but as practical tools, ways to navigate all the complexities of life and become better people.
That's great to hear. And I think that's really the main point here, that these virtues aren't just these dusty old philosophical concepts. They're active qualities we can build and strengthen if we put in the effort.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a little something to think about. It's interesting how these virtues might, show up differently in different parts of our life. Like, how does humility actually look in the workplace versus, say, our personal relationships?
It's a good point. Context definitely shapes how these things play out. In the workplace, humility might look like being open to feedback from colleagues, being willing to admit when you don't know something, or giving credit to others for their contributions. It's about creating that environment where everyone feels valued and respected.
So less about downplaying your own skills and more about recognizing that everyone has something to bring to the table, no matter their position or title.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of learning and growth where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about in our personal relationships? Does being humble mean always deferring to others or avoiding conflict?
Not at all. In relationships, humility is more about being able to see things from the other person's perspective, even when you disagree.
Oh, that's tough sometimes.
It is. It is. It's about being willing to apologize when you mess up, to forgive when you've been hurt, and to sometimes put the needs of others before your own.
So it's about fostering that mutual respect and understanding, recognizing that nobody's perfect, we all make mistakes.
Exactly. It's about letting go of that need to always be right and focusing on building those strong, healthy relationships built on trust and empathy and compassion.
Makes you think how often conflicts come from a lack of that, right? We
Sure.
dig in our heels, refuse to see the other side, and just end up creating more division and resentment.
Oh, absolutely. If we could approach those disagreements with a bit more humility, imagine how much more productive our conversations could be.
It's like that saying, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
I love that.
It's about shifting that focus away from ego and towards connection, moving away from self-preservation and towards understanding.
It's a good reminder that humility isn't weakness, it's actually a strength. It lets us build stronger relationships, handle conflicts better, and just create a more harmonious, fulfilling life.
This has been such a good conversation. We've just scratched the surface of these 10 virtues.
We have. There's always more to learn, always more to explore. But I hope this deep dive has given you a starting point, a way to think about how these virtues can impact your life.
Me too. And don't forget character development. It's a journey, not a destination. It's about making those small, consistent choices each day to live by our values.
That's it, yeah. Every choice matters.
So to everyone listening, take some time to reflect on the virtues we've talked about today. Which one speaks to you the most? Which one feels like a challenge you're ready to take on?
And remember, this is just the beginning. If you're interested in diving deeper, I highly recommend Dr. Pam Lickona's book, Character Matters. It's a fantastic resource full of insights and practical advice.
Definitely check it out. And until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep striving to be the best versions of yourselves.